One of the areas I moved to in Toronto was really unique in that it had a high concentration of um, Portuguese and Italian families that have been there for a long time, like a lot of seniors and a lot of culture there. And it was side by side with Little Jamaica as well. So there's a lot of Jamaican culture as well. And so a lot of different foods, a lot of different music, a lot of different things going on. Um, a little bit of conflict as well, and just really, really crazy neighborhood to be in. I'll leave it at that for now. But that was the neighborhood I would get up and walk around and take some photos in. So I had lived in the beaches in the East End, and then I'd moved to the downtown core. And then when I had met my wife, my now wife, we had moved to this area at Dufferin and Eglinton in downtown Toronto. So, or just a little bit east of that, actually, I had found at Oakwood more specifically. And so that was right at kind of the intersection of all of those cultures and stuff like that. So, really interesting place to live, and provided the opportunity for a lot of really interesting photos, of which I have a few here. And of course, spent a lot of time living there. So that was where I spent my time walking the streets and taking photos of people, of events, and of things. So uh, this photo here is one of my favorites again. One of my first time using reflections as kind of in the composition. And I like the leading lines here of the shelf, and of course, just interesting, focusing on the one mannequin. And this is again Little Jamaica, and part of their culture is a lot of the women will have weaves or wigs that they wear, and so this is one of the shops that would sell that. And there's a lot of cultural shops along. When I say cultural shops, the cultural food, like they'd have jerk chicken stores, they'd have Jamaican patty stores, there'd be barbershops there, there'd be these types of stores to be African and Jamaican fashion. And so just a lot of colors and a lot of things to take pictures of. And this was just really, really interesting to me. A lot of different textures too in this because of the different hairstyles. So I just always really thought this was interesting. It just caught my eye as I was walking by. I wasn't looking for any particular thing to shoot, but this just jumped out to me. And I don't know. I don't know if I think there's a sense of humor in it. I'm not quite sure where, but I don't know. It just made me smile, and it still makes me smile thinking about going back to taking it and looking at it today. So this one was shot at, I think this was with my Nifty 50. This is 50 millimeters f1.8, 1/200th of a second, and the ISO is 400 for this one. So I talked about the Portuguese and Italian cultures here. And so just like a block away from where that photo was taken, there's this hanging in someone's driveway over the garage door. It's a statue of Padre Pio. So there's a lot of Orthodox, a lot of Catholic families in this area, and it's just on full display. And so I just thought this was really, really interesting. Like, it feels like this is something you would see in Europe, and I guess that's kind of the point, is that a lot of families in this area of Toronto, it feels like they've just been like transplanted directly from, like old school, Portugal, old school Italy, old school, European countries. And the culture is like preserved in like a time capsule here. It's just really, really cool. And it's just really neat to see something like this in a metropolitan city like Toronto. Yeah, really, really neat. Caught my eye. I thought it was a little quirky, so I snapped the photo. This one's at 79 millimeters, f6.3, 1/25th of a second, and the ISO was 100 for this one. Yeah, I don't know, kind of fun. All right, this one here. This one I've actually is an NFT available at on my OpenSea, so you can check out the link on my website. Or put the link down in the bio, or not in the bio. Jeez, I'll put my link down in the video description here. As I mentioned just briefly a moment ago, I'm colorblind, so I don't really focus on color. I focus on composition and contrast. In cases like this, the color is contrasted, like the complementary colors, and I love how the blue juxtaposes against the yellow, And I love the texture of the brick. Um, I love the fact that there's still like a hardcore, like old school wire phone booth. Um, that's not a cellular phone, in modern day Toronto. It's kind of crazy. Like these are all 2015 photos. So, I guess we're almost going on a decade now, but still, pretty impressive. And a yellow one at that on a blue wall. That's just so cool. And this was actually attached to a fried chicken restaurant on the outside facing Eglinton Avenue. Just I think it's at the corner of Eglinton and Glenholm. If anyone's interested, who knows? Maybe it's still there. That would be crazy. If it's still there, let me know. Let me know in the comments if you go there and you see that that's still there. And this one was shot at 70 millimeters at f5.6 of a second and ISO 400. I tend to shoot at 1/125th or 1/250th of a second normally. That tends to be what I do these days. These days I'm shooting mostly portraiture, some event photography and stuff like that, but most of it is people. And again, sometimes I go out. Now I'm living in rural Alberta, so I'm not doing urban street photography. My street photography is more, landscape photography or farm animals or, cool stuff like that. Or again, portraiture as well. But yeah, so it's good. Thanks for joining on this journey down memory lane, investigating and exploring some of my old street photography. This one was one of the very, very first photos I took. And before, right now I use Lightroom and to do all my editing, and I do a little bit in Photoshop, but 99.5% of what I do is in Lightroom. And this was before I had Lightroom. So this one was one of the ones that I don't have the metadata available, but this was just at a park, just a little bit, 10-minute walk from my house in Little Jamaica there, Dufferin and Eglinton, or Bon and Oakwood rather. And I like this because you got lots of shapes and geometry going on. You have kind of the rigid squares and kind of triangles and rectangles going on here, diamonds, like all this stuff going on with the tower. You also have the kind of parabolas going with the electrical wires. You have the symmetry of that whole setup, and then you have the textured clouds up behind, kind of broken off into like 4 sections by kind of like lines and light going through. So I just found you have horizontal lines in the clouds, you have vertical lines in the wires. They'll join up to that kind of gravitating force at the bottom in the middle, which is the power line there. And yeah, a simple thing that you see every day on the streets of Toronto, but just shot, I think, in a different way that makes you look at it like it might be art.